All right, everyone, welcome back. Today, we're diving into some news that's been making headlines,
Mm-hmm.
all about NASA's Artemis program.
Yeah.
You guessed it, more delays.
Right?
And we're going to break down what it all means for the future of space exploration, really.
Absolutely.
So we've got a bunch of news articles here.
Fresh off the press.
Yeah, hot off the press, and we're ready to dig in. So
Let's do it.
what's interesting to me, and I think to a lot of people, is that,
Yeah.
I think we all expected some delays, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a huge program. It's complicated.
Of course.
But it's not just the delays themselves. It's what they represent.
That's right. Yeah.
And what it means for the bigger picture. Like, where does this leave the U.S. in the space race?
Especially with China kind of breathing down our necks.
Exactly.
With their own lunar ambitions.
Right. So let's get everyone on the same page here.
Yeah. Good idea.
Remind everyone what the current timeline looks like.
Okay.
So Artemis II, that's the crewed lunar flyby, right?
Right.
Originally, they were shooting for 2024.
Yeah.
Then it got pushed to September 2025.
Uh-huh.
And now they're saying April 2026 at the earliest.
Wow.
And then there's Artemis III.
The big one.
Yeah, the one that actually lands astronauts back on the moon.
Yeah.
That one's been pushed all the way to mid-2027.
Which, every time we adjust the timeline, the costs go up.
Oh, for sure.
We're already talking about a program that's over $42 billion.
That's a lot of money.
And it just keeps climbing.
Yeah, so, it makes you wonder, at what point
Right.
does it become too much,
Right.
Like, politically, can they keep justifying the expense?
Especially with everything else going on, here on Earth and in space.
Right, like, space exploration is amazing, but it's not exactly cheap.
No, it's not.
But, reading through these articles,
Mhm.
it seems like NASA is saying this latest delay,
Right.
it really comes down to one specific thing.
What's that?
The heat shield?
Oh, on the Orion spacecraft?
Yeah, the Orion spacecraft.
That's a pretty crucial piece of equipment.
Yeah, think about it. You're coming back from the moon
Ripping through the atmosphere.
at thousands of miles an hour.
Thousands.
Basically slamming into the Earth's atmosphere.
A rough ride.
And all that friction, it creates so much heat.
An incredible amount, yeah.
And that heat shield, that's the only thing
We only
from
think...
protecting the crew.
Yeah, from basically, being incinerated.
Right. It's like their only line of defense.
It's the difference between life and death, really.
Yeah, so during the Artemis I mission,
The uncrewed one.
yeah, back in 2022,
Mm-hmm.
they noticed some wear and tear on the heat shield.
More than they expected.
More than they expected. And remember,
Yeah.
they were testing the skip entry maneuver.
Oh, yeah, where the capsule kind of dips.
Yeah, it dips in and out of the atmosphere to slow down.
Trying to bleed off some of that speed.
Yeah, and it turns out that created way more heat stress than they thought it would.
It's a delicate balance,
So can you imagine?
Yeah.
You're an astronaut, you're strapped into that capsule,
Mhm.
and you know that this shield, this one piece of equipment,
Is all that stands between you
yeah.
and a very, very bad day.
No wonder NASA's being so cautious.
Yeah, pushing the boundaries of technology is one thing.
Right.
But you can't mess around when it comes to human lives.
Right, safety has to come first.
Absolutely.
But then there's this other layer to this whole story, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
The elephant in the room.
The space race.
Yeah, China.
Mm-hmm.
They've made it pretty clear they want to get to the moon, too.
And they're not messing around.
No, they're aiming for a crewed landing by 2030.
It's not that far off.
And this delay, even if it's just a couple of years, it gives them a real window of opportunity.
Yeah, to test their tech. Maybe even secure some partnerships.
Right, with other countries.
Before the U.S. can really establish a lunar presence.
And we've talked before about the moon's south pole.
Oh, right, with those potential water ice reserves.
Exactly, and if China gets there first...
And starts utilizing those resources.
that changes everything.
Oh, it shifts the balance of power in space big time.
Yeah, like imagine China's able to fuel missions, further into the solar system
Yeah.
from a base on the moon that they
Yeah.
set up.
From a lunar base.
Suddenly, the moon isn't just some scientific curiosity, it's a strategic asset.
It's a launching pad.
Yeah, so we've got safety concerns, international competition,
Mm-hmm.
and this ticking clock on the budget.
It's a lot to juggle.
Yeah, so where does all this leave NASA?
Right. Are they still all in on Artemis?
Well, NASA Administrator Bill Nelson, he said, quote, "We do not fly until we are confident that we have made the flight as safe as possible for the humans on board."
Okay, so safety is paramount.
Yeah, and when it comes to China, he said,
Oh.
quote, "It is vital for us to land on the South Pole so that we do not cede portions of that lunar South Pole to the Chinese."
So they're definitely aware of the competition.
Yeah, so it seems like they're still fully committed to Artemis,
Right.
but for how long?
Yeah, that's the question.
With all these challenges,
Mm-hmm.
how long can they keep pushing forward?
It's a tough spot to be in.
Yeah.
They're trying to balance so many different factors,
Yeah.
and it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out.
For sure.
This is definitely a story we'll be keeping a close eye on
Absolutely.
because the stakes are incredibly high.
Yeah, and I think the next few years are going to be really telling,
I think so too.
in terms of what the future of space exploration looks like.
Yeah, it's an exciting time to be following all of this.
It is. It's definitely a lot to think about,
For sure.
but we'll dig into more of that in the next part of our deep dive.
All right, sounds good.
So stay tuned.
We'll be right back. It's interesting, though, to think about, maybe how this delay could actually be a good thing.
Oh, okay. How so?
Well, sometimes, constraints can actually be good for creativity. Maybe this will push NASA to explore, new materials,
No, interesting.
refine designs, maybe even rethink that whole skip entry maneuver.
So this could be a blessing in disguise.
Yeah, sort of like a, take a step back to leap forward kind of thing.
Right, right.
But even with, the best tech,
Yeah.
we can't forget about the human element.
Oh, right. The astronauts.
Yeah, these are people who've been training for years,
Years.
dedicating their lives to this mission.
I mean, this delay's gotta be tough for them.
Yeah, incredibly frustrating, I would imagine.
To have this, this dream, this goal you've been working towards, and then it gets pushed back.
Again,
Yeah.
a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah, and it makes you think about the future of, astronaut selection
Oh, interesting.
and training, do you have to factor in these potential delays?
Yeah, how do you keep people motivated?
Right. Engaged when the timeline is so uncertain.
Yeah, it's not like you can just say, okay, take a break for a couple years, come back when the rocket's ready.
Right, exactly. They got to stay sharp, physically and mentally.
Absolutely. And speaking of keeping things going, let's not forget the political side of all this.
Oh, right. We talked about the cost.
Over $42 billion.
And counting, yeah.
What happens if there's a change in administration?
Ooh, good point.
A new president, different priorities, a different vision for space.
So it's not just about the technical challenges, it's about navigating the politics, too.
It's all connected.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's where public support comes in, too.
Right.
If people aren't excited about Artemis, if they don't see the value in going back to the moon,
Yeah.
it's harder to justify the expense, the delays, the risks.
Right, so it's like this balancing act,
It is.
ambition, pragmatism.
Pushing boundaries, but being realistic. Yeah, exactly.
And, we've been talking a lot about the U.S. and China,
Right.
but this isn't just a two-player game anymore.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
You got other countries, private companies, even individual entrepreneurs,
Wow.
all trying to get in on the action.
So space is getting crowded.
It's getting crowded, it's getting complex.
Yeah, and that brings up another big question.
What's that?
What does all this mean for the long-term goals of Artemis?
That's a good one.
Remember, the moon was supposed to be a stepping stone to Mars.
Right, a proving ground.
Yeah, for all the tech and strategies we need to go further.
So if we're hitting these roadblocks on the way to the moon,
Yeah,
what does that say about our ability to go to Mars?
that's a big question.
It is, and that's where the real debate begins.
Okay.
Some people say that, these delays are just growing pains,
Mm-hmm.
that we're going to learn from them and be stronger, more prepared for Mars.
Okay.
But then others are like, hey, if we can't even get back to the moon on schedule, why are we even talking about Mars?
Exactly.
So there's a tension there.
A tension that needs exploring.
Yeah, wow. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
Astronaut training, political shifts, new players in space, and the implications for Mars.
It's a lot to unpack.
It really is. And it's clear that this Artemis delay, it's just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, and the question is, what lies beneath the surface?
Good question.
We'll dive deeper into that in the final part of our exploration.
Can't wait. Okay, welcome back. We've been talking all about these Artemis delays. And wow, there's a lot to think about.
There is.
When you look at the scale of it all.
The sheer ambition.
Yeah, and the complexity.
It's mind-boggling, really.
It really is. And it
Yeah.
makes you realize that space exploration,
It's not just about, building rockets.
Right.
Launching things into space.
it's about us,
Yeah, it's a reflection of humanity.
Like our drive to explore, to push boundaries.
To understand our place in the universe.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a deep-seated desire.
But here's the thing.
What's that?
It's not just governments anymore, right?
Right.
Like, we've got private companies, new
Technology all the time.
and more countries getting involved.
The whole new landscape.
So what does that mean for Artemis?
Yeah. Is it still the right path?
Should we be rethinking things?
Maybe.
Like, what are the alternatives?
Well, if the moon is turning out to be tougher than we thought,
Right.
maybe we should shift focus.
Okay.
Some people say we should invest more in robotic exploration.
Oh, interesting.
Send probes and rovers, gather data.
Pave the way.
Exactly. And then there are those who think we should skip the moon altogether.
Whoa. Really?
Aim straight for Mars.
But isn't that, like, even riskier?
Oh, it definitely is.
I mean, we're talking about a journey of months, years, maybe.
Not just a few days to the moon.
The radiation, the psychological toll.
It's a whole other ballgame.
Oh.
But some argue that we need to embrace that risk.
Yeah, okay.
That those challenges, that's what will push us to innovate.
Interesting.
To become a truly spacefaring civilization.
Right. Right.
Think about the technologies we would have to develop.
Yeah, like what?
Life support systems, advanced propulsion.
Right, right.
That could benefit us here on Earth, too.
Okay, I see your point.
It's a long-term vision.
But let's bring it back to Artemis.
Okay.
Even with the delays, the competition, there's still this feeling,
A sense of excitement.
Yeah, like we're on the verge of something big.
Absolutely. A new era of exploration.
And that's what makes this whole thing so fascinating.
Yeah, it's a reminder that progress isn't always a straight line.
Right. There are setbacks.
There are challenges.
But we keep pushing forward.
The human spirit of exploration is pretty resilient.
That's for sure.
It is.
So as we wrap up, we're left with a lot of questions.
More questions than answers, maybe?
Will Artemis succeed?
Will we see humans back on the moon?
What role will we play in all of this?
Those are questions for each of us to consider.
Yeah, but I think the takeaway here is that this is just the beginning.
The conversation is just getting started.
And the more we talk about it, the more we explore the possibilities.
The better equipped we'll be for the future.
So keep looking up, keep asking questions.
Keep dreaming big.
Because we're all explorers,
We are.
Charting a course into the unknown.
That's the beauty of it all.
It really is. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
My pleasure.
And until next time, keep exploring.